Today we're going to build this bench with some storage and a standing height table on the back, all while making my backyard look like a Chipotle. The restaurant, not the pepper. I'm Four Eyes. So you'd think I'd be sick of plywood by now, but based on the 10 sheets you see me unloading here, clearly that's not the case. Now, before I go any further, let me say I'm not using 10 sheets on this project. This is actually going to be the first of at least 2 projects that I'm doing as part of my patio renovation. And all of them use plywood. So if you're watching this the day that it comes out, videos for the other projects are coming soon. And if it's been a week since this was posted, then at least one more should be out. So far all I've been doing is breaking down my sheets. I did this using a combination of my track saw and my table saw. I'd like to do it all on my table saw, but some of the pieces are just too big to either physically fit or to handle on my own. Once all of my pieces were down to a manageable size, I could start putting things together. So we're going to start with this really beefy bench that's going to be good for about 4 people to sit on. I started by taking 4 pieces that were slightly oversized and laminating them together. I pretty quickly realized that in the sun the glue was just drying way too fast, so I moved things into the garage. And actually that was kind of the biggest challenge of this build, just barely having enough space in the garage to function. I was constantly stepping over and on material, but luckily as the pieces got finished, I could just move them to the backyard and out of the way. So I guess in that sense, things kind of got easier as I went along. Anyhow, while those were drying, I started cutting the rest of my bench pieces down to their rough sizes. And this is a pretty repetitive process of just ripping things to width and then cross-cutting them to length. So let's cut away to a drawing that's going to help explain how things go together. So the bench is comprised of 4 sub-assemblies. We'll call them the top, 2 sides, and a center stretcher. Each sub-assembly is made of several pieces laminated together. The top, as you already saw, is made of 4 pieces. The legs are made of 8 pieces each, 3 larger pieces that make up the overall height and the width, 4 pieces that create a ledge for the seat to rest on, and 1 piece to finish off this built-up dado that the stretcher can fit into. So here I'm gluing up my sub-assemblies, and again I'm being kind of quick and rough at this point, because I'm going to take these back to the table saw to cut them down to their exact finished size once they're dry, and then I can put the entire sub-assemblies together. Later that day I could put the entire bench together. The pieces were heavier than I felt comfortable assembling on my own, so I had the idea to do it upside down. And thankfully the longest clamps that I have weren't long enough to do that, because I had totally forgot to put my center stretcher in at this point, and it would have been pretty much impossible to get to if I had glued things together. So having caught that, I went back to the table saw to cut my stretcher to size, and then turned everything back upright and installed it. After that, I waited until later that night when I could get one of my neighbor friends to help me put the bench top into place. And big shout out to my neighbor Mark. What's up, Mark? Once things had dried, I cleaned them up a little bit and reinforced everything with some long screws that are going to tie the top to the sides. I'm not really worried about the look of the top because eventually this is just going to get covered with a cushion. The next day I got the bench out of the way and started in on this little storage cabinet armrest thing. I decided to use rabbit joinery for the case, and I wanted to try doing it using my regular blade instead of the dado stack, So in this shot, I'm setting my fence to cut a groove that'll be the same width as the thickness of the plywood.
Yeah, baby.
Then I made the first of the 2 cuts needed to create the rabbets along the 8 appropriate edges of my pieces. After that, I could raise my blade to make the second of the 2 cuts that's going to clear out the rest of the material. So in this drawing now, you can see what I have here is a set of rabbets that's going to join the tops and the bottoms to the sides, and then another set of rabbets along the backs of all 4 pieces that'll accept a back panel. Next, I could install my door, and if you have a drill press, that's probably the easiest way to make the mortises for the hinge hardware, but I recently got this drill guide that could also be used. So I decided to put it to the test, and I made 1 mortise with each. And honestly, the quality and the results are pretty much identical. After the hardware was attached to the door, I marked a line on the inside of my cabinet and used this hinge plate template to mark the screw locations and install the rest of the hardware. And then the last thing to do before installing the door was drill 1 more hole that's going to go all the way through, and that's going to act as a handle to open it. So with that set aside, I turned my attention to the last part of this bench, which is the standing height table that's going to go behind it. Here I'm laminating 2 sheets of plywood together, which will become the backrest. Once they were dry, I made a cut on each end of the back panel to get it down to its finished length. Then I measured and marked out a long angle, which is going to go along the top of the back panel. You could definitely just keep this part rectangular, but I thought it just added a little more interest. Next, I spent several hours over the course of a day, which I'm condensing down to about 10 seconds, putting several coats of finish on everything. Finally, with some help from my dad, we positioned everything and started screwing it all together. Here I'm making sure to get all of the screws into the big sub-assemblies of the bench so that things are nice and solid. Then I attached my top using these folding shelf brackets. You could use something fixed, but we have kids that like to run around back there, and this thing is pretty much perfect height for the potential of a nasty Triple H-esque clothesline, so we decided to play it safe. I think this piece is going to add a ton of functionality to our backyard, especially once you see it together with the other pieces that I'm going to build. And I know things like the cabinet might seem tacked on or odd at this point, but it's all going to tie together nicely really soon. At least I hope it will. Anyway, what kind of salsa did you say you wanted with this burrito again? Speaking of salsa, you know who I'd like to salsa dance with? Douglas Carone, Chris Beinseal, Mark Blades, Dustin Bartley, Andrew Shepard, Mark Rodriguez, Christopher Stingle, Ali Zahid, Nathan Rukavina, Modernist Maker, Jose from Triple J Customs, Aaron Cousins, Ali Shore, and the rest of my Patreon supporters. We'd need a pretty big dance floor, but I think it's worth it. No, but seriously, I can't tell you how important your support is to me. And while realistically I'll probably never have the chance to dance with each of you, I would like to thank you. So, thank you for everything. And if you want to find out how you can support the show too, check out the Patreon link in the description and see if it's right for you. And as always, no pressure. See you next time.